Respected Congressman and civil audience, good morning. I want to thank the invitation to present my views on this subject against this important committee. My name is Natalia Ocampo. I'm a PhD student from the Nichols School of Environment at Duke University. My research interests are endemic and threatened species, which qualifies me to testify in favor of the Fish and Wildlife Service and their budget. Let's talk about biodiversity loss. Habitat loss, invasive species, human overpopulation, pollution, and overharvesting are the main causes of biodiversity loss. Human influence is inarguably the most important factor affecting life of all kinds in today's world. We are shrinking and fragmenting ecosystems at an amazing rate, and species are going extinct faster than ever before. Only few areas remain untouched, and maintaining these areas will require legal enforced limits on human uses of natural areas and the knowledge and capacity to manage well in all of the world biomes. Now, endangered species are a measure of what is happening to biodiversity and where conservation efforts should be allocated. In the United States of America, the Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA, in charge of listing the endangered species, have found that 7 to 18% of all the United States known animals, fungi, and plants are near extinction. In total, 942 species face extinction in the country. Evaluating the probability of extinction of species gives us a sense of where we're affecting nature the most and where conservation efforts should be allocated. Now, the Endangered Species Act of 1973 was created to lessen the impact of human activities to the long-term survival of plant and animal species by regulating the use of the land in order to protect endangered species and the ecosystems they depend on. If this bill presented for the federal year 2012 was approved, in which there are no funds available for subsection A, B, C, and E of Section 4 of the Endangered Species Act was approved, the Act will lose the basis from which it works, listing the endangered species and their critical habitat, the evaluation of the status of the species and their habitat, and there will not be funds to publish these lists and make them available for the public. Now, the reasons why this is important and why these funds should be allocated to the Fish and Wildlife Service are presenting as four main reasons. First of all, effectiveness of the Act will be limited. Since 1969, 99% of the listed species have been prevented from going extinct by recovery programs of the Fish and Wildlife Service. Without listing and evaluating the species, it will be hard to continue with these recovery programs. Second, the importance of listing. Listing was started to identify and document those species most in need of conservation attention if global extinction rates are to be reduced. We list species to prioritize conservation, saving time and resources. It also assures that a species' critical habitat will be preserved to the most extent, that it will have a recovery plan, and that its traffic will be prohibited. Being listed gives a species a better shot at surviving when facing extinction pressures. The extinction of a species could have severe consequences on the ecosystem as a whole. The process of listing never ends. There are still species to be described and many others to be assessed. In the US alone, the known species that are threatened with extinction is 10 times higher than the number protected from the Endangered Species Act. Failing to list species that are endangered could mean that they would go extinct without scientists and agencies even knowing, or without giving it a shot. Listing is also important because it provides a global index in the state of change of biodiversity. Revaluation of the endangered and threatened species lists gives us a sense of how nature is doing and if conservation efforts might need to be reallocated. Critical habitat loss. Failing to designate habitat loss for endangered species could have severe consequences on the population of this. If during 2012 their habitat was transformed or disappeared, the species could go extinct. Habitat loss has proven to be the most important driver of extinction. Now, long-term assessment. Strengths of this Act. One of the strengths of the Endangered Species Act is its long-term assessment. Species have been listed since 1966. Failing to list species for 1 year will affect this long-term assessment. Shortening the budget for Fish and Wildlife Service to implement the Endangered Species Act could have severe implications on the conservation of some species, as well as in the long-term success of the Act itself. I, as a scientist, support that the funds should be allocated for the Fish and Wildlife Service to implement subsections A, B, C, and D of the Endangered Species Act in the United States of North America. Thank you.